Okay, hello everyone. Sorry for the delayed start. We had some issues to sort out. So today I'm going to be briefing you about UNECE's research on the Republic of San Marino. My name is Hana Dawoudi. I'm working with the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. So we have been working with the Republic of San Marino over the course of the last few months. They were planning to have a whole revision into or further looking into the spatial planning. So they requested us to do a kind of a report that is based on economic indicators and key performance indicators, where we look into the city, into the country, and into the city as a whole. We look at to what extent the Republic of San Marino is using modern IT solutions, and to what extent the different plans and the different laws and the different projects are in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course the 3 pillars of sustainability: economic, social, and environmental. So what happened is that this was a big project where, first of all, we did collect all the indicators. We call them key performance indicators. So we look at how the country and the city, as well the cities and the country as a whole, perform when it comes to the different elements of sustainability. We also did interviews with the different state representatives and also at the city level. So that was a very extensive exercise. And thereafter, we had this report, which will be available soon in Italian as well. We're just in the process of finalizing it. We have just discussed recommendations, so I'm just going to be telling you briefly what this report highlights. If you want to look at the Republic of San Marino, it's a very complex situation of what we call vulnerability. So you have the location, you have the idea that it is landlocked, then there is the landslides that's happening, there's the energy dependency, the water dependency. So it's a very, very vulnerable economy. They have started their journey towards diversifying the economy away from the dependence on the financial system, but at the same time, they want to seek the whole issue of energy efficiency, and they want to be self-sufficient. So for that, they need to have several steps in each and every area in order to achieve, first of all, improvement of the link between the planning at the national level and at the city level. And here there is more areas for collaboration. There is issues with smart solutions that they are looking into in order to reduce the problems of noise, reduce the problem of energy dependency. They're looking into all the buildings, making sure that the buildings will maintain the heritage buildings, but at the same time retrofitting. They're looking into the transport system in order to make sure that they have improved mobility, less cars. So all of these, there are lots of smart solutions that they're going to be looking into. And then there is also another component, because there is the city, the planning of the city, there is the laws, there is the smart solutions, but then there is the enterprises. And here the enterprises in the Republic of San Marino, you know that the agriculture is not very big sector, but they have a lot of very competitive enterprises. And the idea is how to further develop the enterprises so that they could compete beyond Italy. It's clear from the statistics that we have that the SMEs, despite the fact that they are landlocked, some of them are exporting to China, exporting to the United States, and they're very competitive. So there is a lot to do also in how to think about creating jobs, and also the IT sector, which has a lot of potential. So this is another way for job creation. So in brief, all the recommendations are under the 3 pillars. We look into the planning, we look into the laws, we look into the institutions that need to be built, we look into the tangible solutions, and then we don't forget, of course, the economy and the enterprises at the same time, and job creation. So the recommendations will be published soon. The whole report will be published soon. We just finished discussing the recommendation, and I just want to share with you all of this, and if you have any questions, please feel free. I hope I didn't speak fast. Okay. Yes.
Bene, adesso lasciamo la...
Now we're going to leave the floor to the Secretary of State for Land Management and the Environment and Agriculture, Mr. Stefano Canti, and I'd like to ask him to change, or to the technicians to change the slide here on the screen. Thank you.
Sì, per la
For the presentation of the guidelines of the new General Master Plan of the Republic of San Marino. Please, you have the floor. Honorable representatives of the UNECE countries, dear guests, I would like to thank all of you for your large participation in the 83rd session of the Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Territorial Land Management of the United Nations European Economic Commission, and for taking part in this event, in which I am personally involved as a in the presentation of the new San Marino General Land Use Planning Instrument as an appendix to the presentation of the sustainable profile of the city of San Marino prepared by the UNECE. First of all, I am really grateful to the UN organization for having strongly desired the San Marino Declaration, as it is an important UN document which invites architects and engineers who work, plan and design the city to subscribe to the principles of the declaration, which they will then have to apply and implement when they are involved in the planning and construction of cities. The declaration, with Lord Foster as its first signatory, calls on the architects and engineers who sign it, as well as the countries that will adopt it, to adhere to the application of the social, environmental, inclusiveness and climate change principles it contains. So a lot of attention is paid to the climate change principles. The membership and adhesion of all the UNECE countries, the presence of the UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of the UNECE, of the world's greatest professionals and scholars in the environmental and territorial fields, makes me and all the San Marino citizens very proud of this important event, and also because the Declaration of San Marino will remain in the annals of the history of our country. The Republic of San Marino, which is strongly committed to urban planning and to the balanced relationship between the built and natural environment in order to meet the needs of the population, and would like to include the principles of the declaration in the new law called General Regulatory or Master Plan. So everything will be included into the new tool. Well, I think it is important to include everything into the new law called General Master Plan, in which we will find all the principles of the Declaration of San Marino. Let's go through them. Well, first of all, there was a proposal of this instrument that was drafted up by Stefano Boeri as an architect on the mandate of the last government and was published in November 2019. My term as Secretary of State for Land Management and Environment began in January 2020, and immediately the government had to manage the COVID-19 emergency. Unfortunately, the recent pandemic, as well as the current war, has changed the priorities and needs of people living in cities and urban spaces. During these years of government, various environmental and sustainable development policies have been promoted and fostered. We have drawn up an operational plan of strategic infrastructure interventions for the development of the commercial tourism sector and for the recovery of the economy in general. And we also drafted up for the first time the voluntary national review on the 2030 agenda goals delivered to the UN Secretary and submitted and presented in July 2021 at the high-level political forum. But we did not stop there. We kept up the good work and drafted a plan of action for the achievement of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, containing strategies and future plans for achieving the UN 2030 agenda goals. through the participation of all stakeholders and the civil society as well. In an ever-changing world, even more so in this historical phase of profound changes and extraordinary decisions, the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development offers us the opportunity to aim for a new development paradigm based on sustainability and inclusion. An approach that simultaneously refers to environment, society, economy, and institutions, is interdisciplinary and multi-sectoral that includes an innovative and transparent monitoring system. Great attention will be paid to the business world, that are a driving force and key players in achieving sustainable development, marking the strong relationship that must exist between the pursuit of business objectives and sustainability goals. The country strategy plan consists of a set of actions and projects, as well as ideas and insights and proposals to give a boost to the economic growth by recombining and reconciling it with the environmental protection and social protection and promotion, and it stands for the tool for the systemization of the national implementation of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. On the 16th of March 2022, following the debate on the new spatial and territorial planning instrument that took place in the Great and General Council, our Parliament expressed itself with an order of the day, so with an agenda that defined the guidelines and directives for integrating the objectives already identified in the previous agenda of 2017 in order to update the bill and the project for the new planning tool. This agenda takes into account the fact, several aspects. First of all, the fact that the economic and social conditions of the country have changed, as well as the infrastructural needs also as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, that it is essential to define the territorial and land management and structural organization of the coming years by applying a rational and planned policy. That, thirdly, the macroeconomic framework linked to the land policies is being affected by the crisis of the environmental system and by market dynamics. Fourthly, that the objectives of urban and land management planning must aim at securing our territory by improving the quality of life of citizens, at urban and energy requalification and redevelopment, at building efficient system infrastructures, at guaranteeing water supply and energy autonomy and self-sufficiency, at the economic and employment enhancement of production and service activities, to giving a social value to housing, to initiating a circular economy for the development of the territory, to fostering an organic territory, to fostering the enjoyment of leisure time, the practice of sports and the development of culture, to the protection of the landscape, the environment and historical centers with their artistic and architectural heritage, with particular focus on the UNESCO site. About this point, I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear on this specific point. Well, I don't want to take out from any citizen in San Marino a right, and I don't want to remove the right that is already given by the current master plan. To this, we have to add the recent San Marino Declaration, which, starting from our country, cannot be missing with its contents within the new urban planning tool. That is the reason why I want to get back to this point. Well, I want to give you an overview, also considering the order, the time framework. Architect Boeri presented this master plan in 2019. Then we have the UN Declaration of July 2022 that was unanimously approved yesterday on the 3rd of October and undersigned by Lord Norman Foster and by architect Stefano Boeri, invites all the people, the technicians, to stick to the rules that are provided for in this declaration. And this is also the principle, the main reason for the general master plan. Architect Boeri also undersigned this. I want to transfer all this principle into the new master plan. San Marino wants a new master plan in line with the UN declaration, the one that you can find there, that was undersigned yesterday on the 3rd October of 2022. According to what has been written, the pillar topics of contemporary building that must always be respected are the environment, first and foremost, new generation housing schemes of new generations, infrastructures and sustainable cities. Well, in the light of the art of design as a living matter,
sempre in evoluzione,
always evolving, it is important that architecture lends itself to the creation of always safe, inclusive and climate-neutral and circular spaces. In practice, well, constructing buildings officially becomes a commitment that sensitizes everyone to respect environmental circumstances so as to limit the use of energy, use only sustainable energy sources, reuse rainwater, and limit the use of other natural resources. This is what we can read in the Declaration of San Marino. More specifically, the document also urges to respect the identity, buildings and cultural heritage of the place. For the above-mentioned reasons, I am firmly convinced that the new draft law and bill of the new General Master Plan must be integrated with all the social, environmental inclusiveness and climate change-related projects, guidelines and principles related to sustainable development, and everything that is connected to sustainable development. A bill that will certainly go down in history, considering that the current urban planning instrument is 30 years old and will mark a turning point for the urban development of the oldest republic in the world.
The challenge for all nations worldwide is sustainability and energy autonomy. To this end, infrastructural interventions must be identified that can make us as energy self-sufficient as possible. In this regard, the strategic plan for sustainable development identifies projects aimed at water autonomy through the construction of reservoirs for water storage and strategies to boost energy production from renewable sources. We will necessarily have to implement energy production from photovoltaics, both on private buildings and on public buildings and public areas, and at the same time considering, and I will promote that personally, that we need more bills and laws. And at the same time, since the available surface area will not be sufficient to cover all energy needs, we will have to consider investments in renewable energy production plants outside the territory of San Marino. In the future, we will have to try and make ourselves independent of this supply, where in the future we will have to be independent from this supply, but when possible, converting the plants, heating plants. But the first action to be taken is to reduce consumption by making buildings more efficient. That means by increasing insulation to reduce heat loss. In this regard, my idea is to address this challenge by promoting new zero-impact buildings through very strict requirements that can encourage the construction of an environmentally sustainable home with zero ecological footprint, in order to ensure sustainable development that has positive environmental, social and economic effects, and to promote a new culture of eco-sustainable living that simultaneously improves health and quality of citizens' life while respecting the environment. I believe we need to establish criteria and modes for promoting zero energy, environmentally sustainable and highly energy efficient and ecological housing with zero emissions throughout the building's life, including the design and the construction phase, sometimes also giving up on soil consumption. In line with the European directives to promote and protect the environment, to encourage the increase of new zero energy buildings for which the ratio of energy produced to energy consumed is zero or positive, meaning that they produce more energy than they consume, considering the traditions and territorial specificities, and to promote the planting of trees and impermeabilization of soil, I think we need a different agriculture on at least 50% of the territory and extensive agriculture on at least the same surface. The real challenge will be to bring together these topics in the San Marino Declaration and turn them into concrete actions. As a politician, I have a positive view of the future of San Marino that merges the need to protect the environment, businesses, and especially people's expectations. I imagine a city that will be, and a state that will be more connected, that will see the castles being connected by cycle lanes and pedestrian lanes. Today, cycling is promoted by the use of electrical bikes, and I will promote the creation of cycling lanes like the last one that we made that connects the biggest parks in San Marino, Park Ausa and Leala parks. Given the goodwill and feasibility and common sense and the love for our republic. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I would like to thank Anna for her great job. She was pivotal in all this process. She drafted an important document that is the country profile San Marino, following very specific indicators are connected to Goal 11 of the Millennium Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. And they are at the center of the conferences that is being held these days. Some of these indicators are difficult to calculate because they're based on several data that is also hard to collect for a country as small as San Marino. And I would like really to thank on this point all of the actors and people working in public administration like Karen and Marta, who coordinated this data collection, and all the offices and the departments within San Marino that have worked together and were very precise and dedicated to achieve this goal, that is to have a profile of a city that is all the more important for San Marino because the city is the state. So this work, this report will be published soon. We are translating it into Italian, and it will be used to implement the policies that we are developing on development and environmental sustainability. It will also be helpful to detect, identify new strategies, and identify potential investment attraction skills. As Minister Canti said, at the heart of our master plan is the Declaration of San Marino. As a citizen of San Marino, I am proud that I had the chance to take part in this process and to have had the honor to welcome Lord Norman Foster, who was the first to sign the declaration, which will go down in history, as Minister said. It is more or less as Hippocrates' oath for doctors. So all those who signed the declaration from the member states, San Marino, Andorra, with its minister, and the 76 countries of UNECE, and 56 countries, sorry, and all the professionals, engineers from San Marino, president of the Engineer Association of San Marino has coordinated very well the signing with all the colleagues also in Italy. It's nice to see this type of collaboration because it helps us to grow alone and together, because we can achieve so much more together. I will now leave the floor for questions from the public on the topics that we presented so far.
C'è qualcuno che vuole intervenire?
Any questions?
Prego.
The interpreters apologize, but if they do not hear the question, they cannot translate it.
Di tante cose, ma come costi?
The costs, do we have an idea of the costs? You can be an example for the entire world because you're a city and a state. Very nice city and state, by the way. So if you have data on costs, or if you have calculated the budget, the amount of money that you will need, or what an impact this plan will have on the budget.
Grazie per la domanda.
Thank you for the question and for the kind words on the Republic of San Marino. You said something that is very right. We're small, we're a state, and as a small state, we can be a reference even for bigger nations, because in smaller states, results can be seen faster than in a big country. So it is our challenge that we wanna take. Also, when in our relation with bigger nations, what we plan on doing is ambitious. Energy sustainability, and we see that with the current international crisis are the challenge of the future. So I believe that San Marino, as well as all the other countries that live and go through this situation, they have to take concrete measures that must make nations more independent in terms of water, gas, and electricity. We don't have gas, we will always have to import it. We don't have any stations, gas stations, but for energy, we can do more. We are working hard to build plants in San Marino, but plants that are built by private companies, because unlike Italy, we don't have photovoltaics built on land. It's forbidden in San Marino. They're built only on buildings. But if we were to start and build big plants on all the buildings of San Marino, we will never be totally, completely self-sufficient. So we could do more, and we will be in a much better position when we will able to buy energy from plants outside San Marino or with bigger plants that can be built in San Marino and that we are discussing right now. Discussing both options right now. So it's important to understand what is the road to take for us. As for water supply, we already have a project which is in the pipelines. Well, it's well ahead actually, which will make us as self-sufficient as possible in terms of water supplies. We will not be 100% self-sufficient, but we'll be fairly sufficient. It's a pretty expensive plant. It means building a lake, but we are launching this project and this idea, and we would like, all the political forces and citizens to be on board, because it would be a great step for San Marino. It's something that is not just for us, but for everyone.
Segretario, io per ritornare un attimo alla domanda.
To go back to the question, I would ask if we can give numbers from the budget for these investments on infrastructures if the government wants to implement to increase this public spending, and maybe funding from the outside or from the private sector, maybe from businessmen that can invest in a project that maybe cannot start completely. I mean, it cannot be completed in a matter of years, but can be completed in steps, step by step, maybe in 10 years. Yes, it's a possibility. As I said before, we need to have a partnership of private and public sector, because we need to understand what can we sustain as investments, and we need, this public-private collaboration to build these plants. The state has to do its part, and in the next budget, in the next public spending document, we will have a clearer idea of the figures, and we will see if we can find and increment the funding. But at the same time, we need to promote public-private partnership. This will be the future, I think. Of course, we are talking about substantial plants, big plants, so with big costs, as you said. So the public spending that we have today will have to be implemented with the necessary resources to carry out these projects.
Is there anyone else who would like to take the floor, maybe, or ask questions? Do you have a mic? Otherwise, you can come here, maybe, and get a mic in the first rows. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. Good evening. Well, I am Augusto Michelotti. I am the previous Secretary of State for Land Management, and together with Mr. Boeri and his staff, we brought forward the master plan. As far as I know, it is still in the drawers of the Secretary for Territory, even if it was already disseminated and showed to everyone. Well, I don't want to criticize that, but based on the speech by the secretary, I didn't understand what will be the future of this master plan. It was submitted, it is complete, it was finalized. Mr. Boeri has already finalized it. So the master plan is complete. So we haven't understood if it will be submitted to the Great and General Council, since it was adopted 3 years ago, well, in the Congress of the State, so in the previous government actually. So it was adopted a couple of days before the government crisis, so we couldn't bring it to the Council. I would just like to know if these rules will be introduced shortly, since they come out of the San Marino Charter. I know the master plan very well. I think that everything is there. Everything was included in this master plan. Well, starting from the idea that a master plan must be signed by Stefano Boeri or any other governors, not just from the territory, but also in the entire country. Even in Italy, for example, we do have already a master plan, and it is hidden somewhere in... Well, what will be the future of this master plan? And I'd like also to ask if Secretary Canti would like to finalize this master plan, because it will take like 2-3 years. The previous master plan is 31 years old, so well, it is no longer available, it is no longer valid for 21 years. We haven't understood yet what will happen with the urban planning in our country. We could also discuss all the rights that were acquired, and this would be a long discussion. I think from the planning and urban point of view, well, maybe we need a person. And, well, for 30 years, there was no need for a person. Maybe there was just a speculation. I am convinced that the state, in such a regime, which is based on concessions, well, we were authorized by the state to do that according to our urban planning scheme. But otherwise, I believe in the good intentions of this charter. I'm sure that everything will be brought forward, and I am sure that there will be a master plan that is up to the expectations.
Fine del mio intervento, scusa.
Then, sorry if I was a little bit long, if I spoke too much, but anyways, well, there were some rumors and people saying that architect Boeri is not intending to undersign this master plan based on the requests that were made by the secretary, since there was something that about which he thought it was not suitable for the building of this new urban planning instrument or tool. Well, let's call it new, even if it was introduced some time ago, so it is already a little bit outdated or old-fashioned. Well, in 2000 there was a crisis in our country, and well, maybe everything was frozen at that time, but there was nothing serious that happened. So that master plan is very, very updated, and it's a great tool and instrument that took some years of work from all of us, and the contents are very, very good, excellent. They are up to the Charter of San Marino once again. Thank you. Thank you. I think that the answers are already in the speech that was given by our secretary. I mean, most answers to your questions are already included in that speech. But anyway, I will leave the floor to our secretary, to our minister, just to complete what you have just said. Well, thank you, Giuliana. Well, if we consider my speech, everything was clear, in my opinion. I mean, our proposal of a new master plan, undersigned and signed by architect Boeri, must be updated. We are talking about the project that was submitted in September 2019, and in the light of the changes that occurred, so the pandemic, first of all, a new general planning instrument that was approved during this term, and also in the light of the need for equipping the territory of San Marino with new infrastructures for a better energy use, water supply, in order to become, well, self-sufficient. Well, in the light of all this, there is a need for integrating the general planning instrument with new projects. So I do believe if Mr. Boeri shares all these projects with me, there will be the signature by Mr. Boeri. If the architect thinks for personal reasons and for structural reasons, so ideology-related reasons, that he doesn't want to sign this document, then the country must go on with the approval of an instrument, even if there is no signature of an international renowned architect. And we do have a lot of architects that are very well known all over the world. Is there anyone else who would like to take the floor or ask a question, maybe? Well, based and with reference, to the topics that were raised.
Bene, poi...
Okay, so far so good. I think there will be also another exchange of ideas and views. Well, there's already a discussion ongoing with the trade unions, civil society, with all the employers within the Republic of San Marino. We will have also the chance to have a further exchange of ideas in order to deepen all the contents of the new project. So we will meet again shortly. Well, we all agree on the fact that we can't wait too long to have a new urban planning law. As a citizen, but also in general, in my capacity as technician, as environmental engineer, I expect that the new urban planning instrument will transpose all the requests of citizens, as our secretary said, all businessmen and all the people living in our territory. Also trying to respect the environment and sustainable development as well. These are our key pillars and key principles as well, and they must guide all of us and lead all of us towards the future. Thank you so much for taking part in this meeting, and I wish our delegates a good work also in the next few days. I know that you will have to achieve very important goals in the next few days, so I wish you every success. Thank you and have a nice evening.